Richard Weil, and we welcome you into the NRC Helpful Moment number 178, I believe is the number. And of
178.
course, I'm the owner and principal of National Restaurant Consultants. And as always, we welcome in Mr. Brian Devine from CafeFuel and Top Line Management. Brian, you are somewhere in Ohio, is that right?
Yes, we are on the thruway here in Ohio, and it's actually pretty mild. It's like in the 70s. It's great.
Well, that's great. And I'm up above Telluride, Colorado, and it's just pouring here. And if we get a thunder boomer, I might lose connectivity, but we'll see. Right
Absolutely.
now, it's a beautiful 57 degrees here at about 10,000 feet above sea level. So
Whew.
that's pretty good. So got all the windows closed, and I might even put a fire on today. I don't want to make anybody in the southeast or in where
Jealous.
everybody's burning up jealous, but anyhow, today's topic has to do when I said losing connectivity, it's about security of your Wi-Fi and your systems in your restaurant. Now, we know we've since COVID, a lot of us went touchless, cashless, wireless in terms of our handhelds, in terms of all types of technology we've invested in since COVID. And it brings to mind what you need to do to protect your data and to protect your customers' information. Now, we all know about PCI compliance. That's what
Right.
this topic is not about PCI compliance. Your merchant service provider is required to make sure that you're doing your PCI compliance once a year minimum, and usually it's twice a year that you have to go through that exercise as an admin to make sure you're PCI compliant. I don't care what state you're in, that's a requirement now in the United States. I'm referring to that a lot of us have guest access to wireless internet in your building. You got to be sure that it's blocked from your day-to-day transactions and information that's going on that you're running your business. Your POS system internet modem must be different than what you're running your guest access point. If you don't do that, you're going to risk having things ugly really happen to you, could be to a guest. Hackers are everywhere and they're loving those exposed internet things. The same thing is true at the airport. You get on a free Wi-Fi at the airport, you're better off using your hotspot that you control. But I'm going to leave this. This is where Brian is an expert. I'm going to flip it to Brian. But the heed to the warning here is let's be sure we're protecting our own company business information as well as anyone else in the building from hackers because they're out there. So, Brian, you have some thoughts on that?
Yeah, and actually, I want to pivot over to your website because that's more often than not when you get hacked, it's coming through your website. Yes, it can be while somebody is sitting in your restaurant, and if you have open guest accounts and you haven't set up how the guest account works properly, then yeah, there's actually code that they can just run right into your Wi-Fi router. And if you haven't done set up things properly, they have full access to everything. So that obviously is first and foremost is make sure that you've hardened that properly. Um, there are experts in that arena, and it's usually just a matter of logging into your Wi-Fi router and setting it up properly and making sure that you have the guest separate from the main. And as long as you've done that, you should be good. However, most people forget about the website, and it is so easy. So like the number of websites out there that are run on WordPress continues to grow because it's a great tool for building websites. It's very inexpensive. It allows us to do wonderful things for you. But it also means that hackers know exactly how to get into it. And yeah, and so it is really important to think through that process. And especially if you are taking payments through your website. We talked about PCI compliance, but when it comes to your website, that's even more of a big deal. So I always recommend that if you are taking payment through your website, that you actually use a third party. Don't do it yourself unless you know how. So utilizing a tool like it's called WooCommerce, and it's a free tool that you can attach to your WordPress website. It's fantastic. But if you don't know how to stay compliant and how to ensure that your website is completely hardened against hacking and that you're updating that every week, I'd recommend don't do it. Just use a number of third parties that can take your payment for you because they've done it. And it keeps you from getting in trouble, and you don't put your clients and your customers at risk. The other thing to do is to put some sort of hardening software onto your website. And there are tools that we put in place for our clients that, I mean, I hate to even say it, but since we started using these set of tools about 2 years ago, we have not been hacked once. Yeah. And I recently
started the dog.
Yeah, and I recently talked to the developers, and they actually, since they've been using the tools, no one that has ever used these tools has had. So essentially, what it does is it hides your vulnerabilities from the hackers. Believe it or not, when your website is wide open, if you have the ability for somebody to post a comment to your blog, let's say, they can actually inject a piece of code straight into your website just from that place if you haven't set it up properly, and they now control your website and every piece of data that is not only in it but is coming through it. So it is important that you think through that process. Yeah, it could be really scary, but usually what happens is the first time that you get hacked, they hold your website ransom, right, and then they try to get you to pay them so that you can have it back. And if you're using a solid company like we do, then we just roll your website back to before it was hacked. We literally press a button, roll you back, and then we take care of the hardening, and they can't get back in. And so, it's really not that bad if we've done all the right things up front. And then once we've hardened it, then it's usually something that hackers don't bother with because the simple ways to get into a website are removed, so they move on. All right, so it really just comes down to make sure that you thought through the process. Make sure that you have your guest Wi-Fi separate so that they can't just log in and then start accessing everything else that might be attached to your Wi-Fi. And then think through your website. What kind of data do you have? What have you done to protect it? And then if you have a lot of people coming through, a lot of traffic, take the extra time, spend a little bit of money on hardening that website so that the risk of being hacked goes as close to zero as possible. And it's never zero, but we can get it darn close. So if you have questions about that process, about what we can do to help you, or if you just want to know some of the tools that are available to you, get in touch with us, get in touch with Richard, get in touch with me. We will be more than happy to help. And Richard, I gotta find it, but I'm gonna put your logo, there it is. You can go to restaurantconsulting.us
Right.
anytime, fill out a form, get in touch with us, say, hey, love to talk to you about hardening our website. And we want to make sure that we're not hacked. And this is not like thousands of dollars, right?
No, and you call, you get a hold of National Restaurant Consultants. We'll start it off. It never costs anything for the first. Our conversations are never at a cost. The only time anything gets charged is when you actually engage us in doing some work for you. But we talked about this a long time ago, and that is your website also needs to be ADA compliant in both on your desktop application and on a mobile app. This is another part of making sure you stay out of regulatory trouble and keeping yourself safe in operating. Getting hacked is no fun. It's a pain, and it also creates a lot of eyebrows being raised by your guests, by your employees, and certainly by your bank. Nobody wants to be a part of those kinds of phone calls. So take the time, the website, lock it down. If you don't know how, maybe you need to be looking at reviewing that website. It's not expensive, as Brian said, but most importantly, that guest email or that guest internet in your restaurant, if you don't have it on a separate modem and you don't have it away from your day-to-day operations, you're just shopping to have a problem. So that's the message today. Remember, the NRC Helpful Moment is about being helpful. Hopefully, we raised some questions for you all. If you like this will be on our Facebook, our LinkedIn, and our website. Share it with somebody that you know that you might have a concern with. Again, a lot of this stuff we talk about, you already know about, but you need the help. That's what we're here for. So anything else, Brian?
Everybody. I think that covers it for today.
I'm guessing you'll be back in Broomfield, Colorado next week.
I will. Can't wait.
Okay, and that's all we have for today. So bye for now, everyone.
Bye for now, everybody.